Welcome to the Cosmic Powerhouse and another episode of Let's Create a Healing Temple Together. And today we have Gifty Enright in our powerhouse, and welcome, Gifty.
Thank you.
And she is a well-being and women's empowerment expert and keynote speaker, and also best-selling author of the Octopus and the Treadmill. And we will hear from her, I think, in a few minutes what this is meant to be, because it sounds really intriguing. So before we start, and as we really want to create a healing temple, I want to create safe space for us and for you all. So I fold my hands in front of my chest, my heart, and just let's create a golden bubble around you by breathing in and bring that bubble around your body. That is your soul bubble, your individual energy. And I bring my bubble around this virtual space that I can include you in my high vibrational energy, and we have a safe space created. And to ground ourselves and really have full attention for our guest, for Gifty Enright, and our conversation today, I want to ask you if you would take with me 3 deep breaths just to ground us, go out of the head and go into the earth. So just have a deep breathe in and out, and in and out. And we have it even with music. Gifty. So let's start with, learning more about your passion for women empowerment. How did that come? So where did that fire ignite of you that you found that well-being and women empowerment focus for yourself? Is this meant to be a personal story for you? Is it connected to some specific situation? Let us hear about that story.
So, in terms of women's empowerment, that's always been in my blood somehow. Believe it or not, my great-great-grandmother, way back in Africa, was one of the most fabled warrior queens, where she led the men to war. And so it's always been in my blood. And we grew up hearing that story all the time, about this woman that led the men to war. And then for me in my life, as I was growing up and doing the corporate thing and working hard and burning the candle both ends, I had 2 small kids at that time, and all that hard work and, climbing the corporate ladder and the juggle had me in burnout. And I got to the point where there were all these things I wanted, what in the West, well, and everywhere pretty much, we consider success. So I had all the trappings of success, but I was ill. I wasn't well, and I was miserable. I hated my life. And I had to find a way out of this trap, this cage I found myself in. And my journey from that miserable cage is what I wrote the book about. And so it's just fighting my way out of burnout into a more productive space. And that is why well-being became my bag, because I was at the point where what the doctors were telling me wasn't making sense to me. It wasn't resonating. I didn't want to be on medication for the rest of my life, but, all those things. And I thought there's got to be another way. I was supposed to be at the prime of my life. And so I went on that journey to find the other way. And when I came out of that dark tunnel, I thought other women, particularly mothers, needed to know what I had found out to make their lives better. And that's why I wrote the book.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful that you gave that further. Not wonderful that you have suffered from that, of course, but wonderful that you have the passion developed that you say, okay, I want to share that story, I want to share what I've experienced and what helped me to come out of that, because I can imagine so many women are suffering from that, right? So we hear so much about burnout. So many women would love to hear from other women to, know what did they do? How came they out the treadmill? How could they get that out the hamster wheel, like we say? And really find back to well-being and fulfillment, right? That you feel yourself. So that must be also a very spiritual path. So what helped you then, actually?
Yeah, so I mean, I had always been a spiritual person before all this. And so when it happened, when I was going through that, I used that as one of my anchors, if you like, to help me through that. I mean, I've meditated for as long as I can remember. And so without my spirituality, I would definitely have gone off the rails. And also because of my spirituality, I knew that the body was just one part of the equation, do you know, and that it wasn't the whole story, and that there were other mechanisms at play that I had to tap into to understand, to be able to heal from the inside out. Right. So in terms of what the doctors were saying, they're specialists in just the physical body. And I needed more than that. And so I had to look at the holistic person. I had to look at the mind, body, spirit, if you, as it were. I had to look at the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, and work my way out of that and find a balance, you know, because I had just followed the material world and gone and chased that material stuff and found myself in this very unhappy place, but surrounded by all the trappings, all the material trappings. And I kind of felt lost. And so it was more about rebuilding from the ground up, but using the right material, you know, to be able to then live more in balance.
Yeah. So what did help you then? So it sounds for me like, when you only your focus is very much in the material world, and you're kept in that, right? So because also you think about, I want to go off that, so I want to leave that because I feel it's not good for me. I feel pain, actually. But it's easier said than done, right? So you can want it and think about it, but it needs something more, that you actually be able to really leave that area of outside view and materialistic world, like you say, and find that inner peace again. So was there something specific? You said, I think meditation helped you. So what specific?
And meditation is just one aspect of it, because from my point of view, meditation helps you to manage your mind. And if you don't take hold of your mind, and if you allow it to run roughshod, right, all what it does is just rolling around in your head with your conditioning, your faulty wiring. And you need to break that loop, get out of the faulty wiring, and if you like, rebuild the wiring into something that will support you. And spirituality, for me, is one of the best ways to understand your faulty wiring, because it's coming from the place of there's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect. You're made in the image of whatever your divinity is, right? So if you can tap into that, then you're not coming from a broken place. So what you're looking for is looking for your way back to your completeness, your wholeness. And this is what spirituality gives. Otherwise, it is more about you're broken and we got to fix this broken thing, and you feel more broken, and you know, and that really can keep you trapped. And so for me, it was more spirituality. I always tell people it's psychology or mindset management on steroids, do you know? So that was one aspect of it. And then when I say I worked holistically, again, it's looking at the physical. What was I doing? How was I managing my body? Right? Because, and I always tell people as well, my body is a temple, and it is. And so if it's a temple, you will not be putting rubbish in it. right? So you are then intentional about what you're putting in your body. Because up until that point, I was just not being intentional. Food was food. Whatever was put in front of me is whatever was put in front of me. And so I had to go and understand about nutrition. I had to go and understand about what helps this temple work better, and then there was, in terms of the emotional management, you're looking at stress management, because if you look at in terms of the body and what affects us most, you can have different types of, I don't know, call it trauma, call it ways of things that affect the body, but you have that actual physical trauma. You've been hit by something that puts you in pain, or you've ingested something which is not suiting you. The next thing is what you're thinking, because again, that also affects your biochemistry. So those three things you have to look at in terms of toxicity, what is happening and how to manage those things. So it's just looking at the physical, what I'm eating, what I'm putting into my body, how I'm moving the body, how I'm resting the body, right? All that, and then the stress management aspect of it, and tapping into my spirituality to bring me back to wholesomeness or wholefulness or whatever the word is.
Honest.
Even that one.
Yeah. Thank you so much, because I love very much that you say our body is a temple. It's actually also my my philosophy, and I know it's also connected to the Pythagorean community, actually very ancient wisdom school. And here we also have that focus on treating your body as a temple and connected to the arts, and here also mathematics, of course, but to the arts and also to purity. So it is also, like you say, it's also nutrition, which is important, because everything, also every vegetable, and every fruit has a vibration. And if we try with our spiritual activities, if we try to really increase the vibration, like I said in the very beginning, to have a high vibrational appearance and room. So it's important what we feed into us. Yeah. So if we have tortured animals to feed in us, and I know it sounds weird for many people still, but it's actually so that you feel it when you are in that awakening state. You can actually feel it when you eat something which is no more on your vibrational level. It feels like pain. You will feel it. And there's so much more. So I love very much what you're saying, that it is a holistic approach. It is really more than meditation to manage the mind. It is really a holistic lifestyle. And that is what I think can people also help to see. It's not another 10 additional courses to do this and that and then bring even more stress. Yeah, like you say, you need to fix something. You always have the pressure to fix something. So, but to learn how to implement a lifestyle which is actually nurturing your soul and your being to be and not to do all the time. So yeah, so what would be your vision then when you, before we go in the more the corporate world, so what would be the vision you have for the women when you think about a healthier lifestyle, or how they can, step into that journey to come back to themselves?
Yeah, so I mean, because I actually coach women. I mean, I specialize in working mothers, and it's almost like in how to live. Because that demographic is a very important one, because they're bringing up, they tend to be the primary carers, right? 70% of the caring burden is borne by women, as we know. And so they have these children. I always tell them, those children, their self-esteem depends on you and how you're feeling. So if you haven't looked after yourself, you haven't managed yourself properly, and you wake up, and for those of us of a certain age, you're perimenopausal or even menopausal and all over the place because you haven't looked after yourself, and you end up shouting at the child or whatever, they don't have the the emotional or developmental sophistication to be able to process what's coming at them, to be able to say, this is not me, it's not on me, it's on you. No, they just internalize, they take it all in, they think it's me. So those of us who are responsible for children have a duty of care to take care of ourselves and our emotions so we don't go spraying all our dirty energy, right, on these poor unsuspecting victims. So in terms of what I do and my philosophy, I believe that helping women stand in their power, because women are the architects of society, means that everybody else gets to stand in their power. And that is why that is so important to me. So is how to live, how to look after yourself, how to take care of your mind, how to take care of your body, how to live, basically. If you know how to do that, it filters into everything, your relationships, your work, everything. So it's very, very important. And that's why, and I honestly believe when any woman goes and has a child, before they come out of the maternity ward, somebody should give them that handbook to say, from this point on, your life is going to be turned upside down, and this is how, you manage it. And it allows you then to live well, because it's about knowing how to live well so that you don't create any casualties around you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. And I feel it is also about the worth of the women, right? Because when you are more aware, when someone is really tapping you into that, you are responsible how you are showing up, what you're doing, because you're a role model to your kids,
Yes.
to your. On the other way around, you're also maybe be more aware of your value, right? Because you count, you feel more, you count, you count how you're showing up, what you're doing. Is that a right thinking, or I'm too far away from that?
No, you're not too far away. No, you're spot on.
Really work.
You're spot on. It's actually knowing your value. And like I say, these women are the architects of society. So it's understanding your value, right? And the fact that there's even such a word as women's empowerment, like we have to empower these women. Why? These are powerful people. But because of the way society is structured, they tend to be pushed down, and they're making all these sacrifices and not listening to their soul and hiding their light under a bushel. And I feel I was put on this earth to help these women stand in their power.
Yeah. So I was listening to a lecture from Sadhguru, maybe you know him, and he was talking about the feminine dimension, and I found that very interesting. So it reminds me just on that, because he was saying, so it's so sad because we have developed a society where the masculine dimension was getting so prominent, and the feminine dimension is so much missing. So I think that connects very much to what you were saying already.
Yeah, and we need both.
That we need, and exactly, and not again to push us into the different corners, right? So here the women, here the men, because there's also needed an understanding that we both have inside. So we all, every human has this masculine and feminine dimension and the qualities. And it's just about the qualities and not if man or woman. It is a quality of the feminine and the masculine. And the feminine is barely missing. And I guess your work can help very much to empower women to also be more the role model and bring in this feminine dimension also in the business world, right? So what do you see for the business world, what we would need to be more aware of the feminine dimension and its value, and that we can balance them back to that harmony we need in that cosmos, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, unfortunately, I suppose when it started, in the workplace as it is now, post-industrial revolution, it was like basically the men sort of suddenly, moving from the agricultural, society to the industrial one, the men suddenly started going out to work. Because previously, in the agricultural age, they would have been around the same place with the mothers and the children. So geographically, it was everybody was sort of around the same place. And then come the Industrial Revolution, they're off, going off working wherever, in factories, whatever, and the women are left at home with their kids. So then the workplace became seen as a masculine dominated place. But the women, it's not like they were not working, it's just geographically, they were working at home. They weren't there just sleeping all day, do you know? They were also busy working, but the workplace as we see it now is not at home. It's somewhere different. And so it meant that masculine attitudes and attributes became synonymous with the workplace. And so when the women started going to this other workplace outside the home, they had to kind of morph into that masculine way of operating, because that is how it is seen. And that's such a shame, because the women are coming with a whole raft of different skill sets, and you know, the empathy, the nurturing, the connection, all those things that they do well. And now there's research to show that, you know, when you're looking at, I think it was Fortune 500 companies or whatever, women-led, you know, companies with the women CEOs tend to do better. And somebody was actually advising that as an investment strategy, as in go look for companies with women CEOs and buy the stocks of those companies, because they, you know, will do
That's
well.
actually a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody was actually advising that strategy on LinkedIn, believe it or not. But it's just because women lead in a different way to men, you know, and it's not, you know, neither is sort of good or bad. Too much of everything obviously is not good, but the way women lead, it's more it's more inclusive. It is less aggressive, and it is more nurturing, right? And unfortunately, going into a masculine workplace, a masculine dominated work with those traits haven't been valued as much up until now, because now a few of us are shouting about that. Right? And now the things that people are valuing in the workplace are changing, you know, but still the power brokers are men. Right. So if you look at senior management, if you look at the C-suite, you're looking at 25% women to 75% men. So still the power brokers are men. And if you look at the female talent pipeline at entry level, both male and female is almost the same, with about less than 5% difference. Actually, no, what am I talking about? Less than 1% different at entry level. But when you get to senior management, suddenly it's a 25-75% split. How did that happen? Some of these women, or a lot of these women, get frustrated and they leave the workplace, or the combination of the juggle with motherhood and work is too much. So they fall between the cracks, and some of them stagnate because they don't want the promotion. It's too much hard work. And those that don't stagnate and move up the ranks, you know, the strategies that they have to employ, they start behaving like men, because those are the traits that are respected. And when a woman starts behaving like men, it's like the last thing you want to do, because then nobody likes you. The women don't like you, the men don't like you. So it's just a lose-lose situation, right? And so in the workplace, as it is now, this is 2024, the stats still don't look good. It is still, there's a gap in everything, wage gap, everything gap there is. And so it's something we need to work on, so people will start valuing what is termed as feminine traits, you know, the empathy, the connection, the nurturing, the inclusiveness, you know, they're not just feminine traits. They make business sense when people start looking at the bottom line, when they start including these qualities. And so we just have to hope that the workplace starts evolving and people start building better cultures. And when people understand that, if you have, there was a quote, did I post it? I think maybe it's coming out tomorrow, as in thriving workplaces, you know, if you want thriving people, build thriving businesses. It is that simple.
Yeah, and it is also about energetic leadership, right? So, and when you have that different kind of dimension, you have also the specifica of these energies which are working together. And yeah, what you're saying reminds me also what I've read a lot about it, that women actually would have the qualification and everything. It's not the point. It's really the culture. It is a culture, and if I feel yeah, if I like that culture and the behavior of my management colleagues, if I feel comfortable in that surrounding and really would love to take over that leadership role, that is the point. It's not that women would fear anything, so, or they feel not qualified. That's not, it's very often not the point. So it's really the culture and the environment that we feel accepted and also treated equivalent, right? That we can grow there. And actually the principle of the female and the male, we have it in so many wisdom, in all the wisdom traditions, right? The alpha and omega. So that is an absolute cosmic ancient principle. And
It is the
it
yin,
is
the
for a
yang.
reason. It
Yeah,
is for a reason that it is meant to be so, that we play together. And then you have even the third dimension with spirit as a trinity. So, but it is really a very, very old principle. And I would say the world really cries that we come back to that harmony. Well,
yeah.
and we don't have not the one or the other. So we have it together, that collaboration and working together and floating into each other. That is what makes strong societies, right?
Well, exactly, because I mean, if you because everybody's got the feminine and the masculine, but if you just lean too much towards your masculine qualities, which is what I did in the earlier part of my career, that is what results in burnout, right? And then there's a feminine side, which is all about restoration and nurturing and all that. You need both for balance. If you just go one way, you're burning out. If you go the other way, there's other challenges there, and so you need the balance of both, so you can go and push, but then you make time to relax and to connect and to engage and to have that, because depending on what's going on, some things demand masculine energy and some things demand feminine energy.
Yeah, it's just to really be the sovereign in the situation and know what is actually now needed in that situation, right? And for both sides, for men and for women.
Absolutely.
So yeah, diversity, cultivating inclusion, and as a universal value, when you look at this point, then tapping into diversity and women and men. So I was actually myself in a diversity and inclusion team for some time, and I'm connected to people who are really focusing on that. For me, it felt exactly that there's too much separation of that. So I felt a bit weird, also with the Women's Day, I have to say. So because for me, it was always that the both play together, and it should be in harmony and empower each other. So how do you think about the diversity and inclusion culture? So what is needed, and what is maybe an area where we can also do a shift towards the future and make it a different approach?
Yeah, so certain wounds have been created by my two minority groups. So and those wounds need to be healed before, if you like, they can come out and play. So because there's no point in, I don't know, because it's not a level playing field. Let's face it, it really is not a level playing field. And so now this is why we talk about equity, because people need different things. And so you can't, for example, at the Olympics, come and put kids that haven't learned how to walk to come and compete with elite athletes or something like that. Do you know? And so depending on people's needs, you need to understand the needs, and sometimes to understand the needs and heal whatever differences and diversity. You need to have that separation to allow the healing, because some people think, why is it, why do we have International Women's Day? Why can't we all be together and join hands and kumbaya? Well, we can't be together because there are certain things that women have been saying for a long time that just men are not capable of hearing yet. And women have not found a way of articulating it for the men to hear yet. And so whilst we're working on that, and I can say something to you as a woman that you will get just like that. And I can say the same thing to a man and it'll probably go over his head, right? So we have different points of references. And I, for one, I believe that if we're talking gender parity, there's no way women on our own are going to get parity if we don't get the men involved. There's absolutely no way, because society listens to these men who are 70% in control anyway, right? So we need them. So, but yeah, so we can't do it without them. But it doesn't stop us from having our International Women's Day, knowing what it is we want, articulating it, and knowing how we can then explain it to the man for the man to become an ally. Because what the man is doing is using his privilege, right? To be able, his platform, to be able to elevate women's issue. And it's the same with race, it's the same with disability, it's the same with the gender issue. So it is the same thing. But the minority group, they have unique set of challenges that they face, and assuming that those set of challenges, if you just throw them in the mainstream would understand and absorb, that is a mistake. They need that safe space to be able to articulate whatever their issue is and next steps forward, whatever. And if you like, be able to then go and sell that to the power brokers for them to use their privilege in allyship to them.
Mm. So when I understand that correctly, it's really treating each other in parity, and that we have the equality, but to see where the needs of each individual, and of course, if we have the different disabilities, all individuals shall get the help, right? The support in daily life, in corporate, everywhere, right? That they can be treated equally, that we can meet each other's eye on eye, right? And a lot of this, I would say, is communications, right? So communications and how it is, distributed to us in society, and how we experience that. I believe that many people would act differently also in their behaviors if they would know more about that and how the other person would feel, right? So that's why there's a lot of big NGOs like Billion Strong and so on, who really make us more aware of what are the needs of these individuals, and let's don't let us separate from each other, but really include and see what's needed to have a better life together, and also to inform others to know about how do I speak to an autistic person or whatever, right?
Absolutely. And it is about communication, because there's a lot of ignorance around. And nobody's out there trying to be a bad person. They're just ignorant. They don't know, they don't understand the issues the other person faces. And I mean, when I go to corporates, and like come International Women's Day week, I'm booked solid because I specialize in women's issues. And after that, everybody forgets that women exist. But anyway, and that's beside the point. But when a lot of men, when you tell them that they're privileged, they don't even get it. And I understand why they don't get it, because they're like, I'm just working just as hard as the next person. Nothing has been handed to me on a plate. And I get that. They're working as hard as the next person. But what they don't understand is they get to stand on a level ground to work hard. Others are in the pit, and they have to climb their way out to be able to be on that same level to even begin to work hard. Do you know? And
Yes.
that is the privilege that people don't understand. So the minority groups are down in the pit somewhere dealing with all sorts of difficulties, and they have to overcome them to be able to be the same level. And this is where the communication needs to start with these people so they understand, so they can use their privilege to help.
Okay. So back to the vision. So what would the workplace look like for you ideally, where you see women? So imagine you have that work scene where women and men are working together. So how would it look like in your future perspective, where you say, okay, that's really a vision. I would love to see that we are developing our work to that kind of state.
Yeah. And really, at the end of the day, it is about respect and dignity, and treating whoever you come across as a fellow human being. And then it doesn't matter whether it's a woman, whether it's a person is Black, whether they're disabled, whether they're, neurodivergent, then it doesn't matter. Because we're all different in our own way, and you cannot become a master in every issue that everybody faces. So that individual in front of you, it's the communication, and it's about treating that person with respect. And if there's something you don't understand, asking them to, again, explain to you their world through their eyes, through their lens, so you can appreciate, because that's what empathy is, isn't it? To be able to literally walk in somebody's shoe, if at all possible. And so really, if any individual you come across, and this is where, for me, again, I borrow from spirituality, where we are all one and the same. And so if you subscribe to that, and if you believe that we're all from source, and we're all ultimately part of the divine, is just expressing differently, right? Then everybody's your brother, your sister, whatever. And so then you're looking at another soul. You're engaging with another soul. And in that, you are going to treat them with respect, because if that soul is a part of you, why wouldn't you give them that dignity and respect? And so if you're coming from that dignity and respect, that is what gives you the empathy, that's what gives you the understanding to be able to relate to them. So in the workplace, then, it really doesn't matter what that person is. Their sexuality doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Are you treating them with dignity as a fellow human being? That is my dream, for everybody to embody that and use that in their professional relationships.
I absolutely love that. Of course, a wonderful dream, and it does not need to be a dream still, right? So we really want to work all together to come to that, to make a more spiritually tuned world. So our focus here is healthcare and healing, but actually healing is connected to all the areas, like the environment, what we're eating. It's not only the hospital area, so it's everywhere. And as spiritual beings, like you say, and really feeling like a soul and surrounded by souls, and not talking only to someone in a role, in a specific, but to the soul, to the spiritual, makes life actually much easier. I know
it does.
There is many people who still need to experience that, but we can give the message. So when you're going that path, life is really different. So you really feel more connection. And you also don't feel so much alone, because that is another aspect I hear very often now, especially for women, that they feel very lonesome, right? And that they feel very separated. And for me, it was as soon as I was more in that spiritual awakening process and learn more about my soul and connections, and I more connected to the spirits, I did not feel anymore that being alone. So I experienced that there's so much around me, and if it is a birds, or if it is this or that. So like you say, we are all connected and all part of the source, and it would in my opinion, really reduce a lot of problems in the world if we could have this view on life and on ourselves.
No, it really is simple, isn't it? It really will simplify a lot of things.
Yeah, it would. It would. So, what else could we do to make places more a healing temple? So, more looking on the health side now. So, do you have an advice for us and a recommendation? What can the employers do, or what can the employee do working at the place to have more focus on the well-being and health?
Yeah, so I mean, I love the concept of the workplace being a healing temple. I mean, how radical is that? Um, because we spend a lot of our hours there. Well, for those that go out into the office to work, and even if you're not in the office, you're still in sort of, if we're talking energetically, right? These are people that you're interacting with, you know, at least 8 hours a day. So you're sharing that what do you call it? Vibration, energy, whatever you want to call it, frequency even. So what you want to do is make sure that everybody feels safe. A lot of people go to work, it's not a safe place for them, and they spend all their time there with elevated blood pressure and can't wait to come home. And I personally, and as radical as this sounds, I feel that HR departments should be independent of the organization. They should not report to senior management. Because if they're there as part of the organization and reporting to senior management, and senior management is the one that's misbehaving, where do you go? Do you know? And so, and the number of times I have had women being bullied by men or men behaving badly, but these men are in positions of power and nobody will stand up to them, or is the CEO. There was nowhere to go. Whereas if you had the HR function, external, independent, reporting to a body with teeth, that can actually maybe come and fine this organization for, I mean, if you think about, I don't know, health and safety, that sort of thing, you know, as in they have contravened something and somebody's going to hold them accountable, then senior managers will behave differently. So I think that would be in terms of a radical workplace and what needs to happen in society so people don't have a miserable experience in the workplace. The HR function should be separate and independent and report to a different body. And then also it is about ensuring that, so well-being, when it comes to well-being, I see it as a personal accountability of the individual and then also the corporate accountability. So both parties have to do their bit. So you can't be up all night and, I don't know, not looking after yourself and not eating well, whatever, and then expect your organization then to do whatever well-being initiatives they're doing and hold them accountable. It takes two. So both parties need to do their bit, as in employers need to do their bit and make sure that people are not being asked to do work stupid, crazy hours and being kept away from their families for too long and all that kind of stuff. So they need systemic practices in place and structures in place, you know, as in somebody's working crazy hours, a red flag goes up, the boss sees it, that sort of thing, you know. And the individual also taking accountability for their own well-being, because it takes two in the workplace. And I think with that, when you have, because the individuals, they can be encouraged, of course, to take their well-being seriously. And if it's then supported in the workplace, that helps everybody stay healthy. And it can only contribute to the bottom line because people come in, they're happy to be there. And I think workplaces should be havens of productivity and creativity. And the only way it will be that is if people feel happy and safe to be there, because it's like, this is where I go to release my genius.
That is wonderful. Release my genius. Exactly. Yeah, and that's connected to the soul, because that's like we say, when we come back to that, we are recognizing each other as souls and know we have that soul blueprint with our specific gifts. It should be also very interesting for the employers, right? Because only then you can bring out your genius, when you're really connected to the soul and can use your gifts and not pressed in some kind of frame and you need to behave this and you need to do that role. So, but just to, yeah, makes it also maybe more interesting for the managers, because when I, as a manager, have the chance to really work that way and can look at my people then to what kind of specialists do I have in the team, right? And can help them to develop that skills also to use it more efficiently or more powerfully. That makes, I would say, fun for everybody. So
Yeah,
for everybody is much more fulfillment in the workplace for the employees, but also for the managers, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So for me, it sounds also a bit that it must be more individualized. So I know we have in big companies and corporates, we have those kind of programs also where we look, of course, individually to the person and set individual goals and development plans. So how do you see that evolving in the landscape of corporate?
Yeah, because the individual definitely needs to take responsibility. So you are responsible for your own well-being, and of course, your employer can help by putting things in place for you, but you are responsible, because they can put all these lovely, lovely things there for you to use, but if you're not using it, what's the point? Do you know? And so this is what I meant by is that personal responsibility, and also especially if you take the young ones, for example, they're young, they're just coming into the corporate world, entry level, they want to impress their boss. That's all they want to do, impress their boss and climb the ladder. So those will be the ones working the stupid hours because they want to stand out, you know, and they're also young and impressionable, and they don't quite understand boundaries. They don't feel confident enough to push back. Do you know, if they come across an unscrupulous manager that's making them work crazy hours, that sort of thing. Do you know? And so for that vulnerable group of people, for example, what are we putting in place to make sure that they're not doing stupid things like working through the night, you know, and being found dead the next day as they did in some bank somewhere. But it's just making sure there are controls in place. So we need systemic controls, and then also educating people on their well-being and encouraging them to take responsibility, and also making sure that we have senior modeling. So there's no point in saying to people, okay, you can work from wherever you are, when the manager is sat in the office 9 to 5 every day, you know, because then people feel under pressure, especially the young ones, to do the same. And so whatever it is, it's not just say it, be that too, be that change so they can see, yeah, so they can see it.
Exactly. Yeah, I very much like that. So thank you very much for all the insights in the business world, and especially for women empowerment. I learned quite a lot today as well. And so let us have some short closing questions. So what would actually be your call to action then to change when it is one specific message going out? What is your most important message right now?
People first.
Okay.
Always, always, always. Whatever your strategy is, people first.
Wonderful. And about your energy management, so I think we could experience that you are full of energy and power. So there's a lot of fire coming through. So what are you doing actually to keep that balance?
So two things. So first of all, I have my usual practices, obviously the meditation, looking after myself physically, so exercise, for example, nutrition, making sure I eat well, and also managing my mind and my stress levels. So I have all those techniques I use. But normally what I offer people is there's a piece of research came out. This is a long time ago. This research is quite old now and is still relevant. That the top 4 factors that impact our well-being. This was research that was done by London School of Economics a long time ago now. And normally when it comes to well-being, people are thinking, oh God, what are the top factors? And there were lots of them, but I just took the top 4, which I actually mentioned in my book. And number 1 is your mental health. All right. So always making sure your mental health is where it needs to be. You're taking care of your mental health. Number 2 is your close personal relationships. And so when I say to people, when I'm teaching, talking, coaching, I'm using Western science, I'm using Eastern philosophy, which is a spirituality, and I talk about African wisdom. That is all about connection. That's all about community. I mean, when they say it takes a village, that comes from Africa, right? So that's all about connection. And so those close personal relationships, it turns out when the clever people measured it, that is the second highest thing that impacts your well-being. So you have your mental health. The second thing is close personal relationship. The third thing is your physical health, right? So that comes in at number 3. And number 4 is then your income and your work. But how many of us live like that? A lot of people, when they start, number 1, wake up first thing, they start with the income, work, chase. They're not thinking about the family that they're ignoring, those close personal relationships. They're not thinking about their mental health. They would work in a toxic workplace till the cows come home rather than going to look for another job. And so once you understand that these are the 4 things that are impacting your well-being, your mental health, your close personal relationships, your physical health, and then the income, the job, whatever, I would say structure your life around that priority.
Mm-hmm.
If you do that, you will do just fine.
Very good. So, and finally think about legacy and hope. So when you think on your life and all your contributions in that area, so how would you like to have your contributions remembered? So maybe writing another book?
One day, but maybe another book. But for me, because I'm all about women and getting women to stand in their power. That is really what gets me out of bed. Like if I know I have a coaching session in the morning and your woman is coming on and I know husband is doing this, children are doing that, what I'm there for them. And it's because, like I said at the top of the conversation, I believe they're a very important demographic. So in terms of my legacy, I would like to be known as the woman that helped other women to stand in their power. That would really make me die happy.
Wow, how powerful is that statement? My goodness. Thank you so much, Gifty Enright. It was really a great pleasure talking to you and learn so much about women's empowerment. Thank you so much. And now I close the Cosmic Powerhouse Safe Space. And thank also our audience watching this episode of the Let's Create a Healing Temple. So please follow us in our podcast show for more exciting episodes to watch and all the content around. I thank you and I wish you that you find your path to create your own healing temple. And remember what we said also here. Your body is a temple. Nurture it. And don't forget about your soul. It's most important for you on earth. Thank you.